Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Liberation Podcast. Today we will be discussing, analyzing, and reviewing The Buffalo Hunter Hunter by Stephen Graham Jones. I think I said that in the right order. For more content outside the podcast, please check out our Instagram and TikTok at Literary Liberation and Twitter at LitLibPodcast. I'm your co-host, Mariah, and you can find me at HungryRye on all social media platforms.
And I'm your co-host, Kristen. You can find me at KRXXTXN on all social media platforms. Anyways, so this is our July book club pick, The Buffalo Hunter Hunter, that we read with the book club. Honestly, the chat wasn't very active, but we did get a lot of reviews at the end of the, where the results are. And I think everybody in there has rated it over 4 stars.
This was a very popular read, and this is also, I think, the first book that we have read that has come out in 2025, if
On
I'm
the
thinking correctly.
podcast?
On the book club, not on the podcast.
Yeah,
No, just
definitely
on
not
the book club. This was like the newest book that we have read.
Yeah, I probably agree with that. I mean,
Which
this is probably
brought us more people in the book club, so
Yeah, a bunch of
that's
people
cool.
joined.
So maybe you're listening to this and you're new and you don't know what the fuck is going on. Hi, welcome. This is what we do.
So I know mine and Mariah's experience too. We haven't read any of Stephen Graham Jones' other books either, so this is our first book into his world. I have a couple of his books that I have like on my want to read on Goodreads too, like The Only Good Indians, and then I think I Was a Teenage Slasher or something like that. I don't know the exact title. I know I wanted to read those two for sure. And I think the series that he has too. Those are all like very highly rated.
I think before we get into everything, like we read this, right? And
Yeah.
we recommend it, right?
Yes.
Would you read another book? Because this wasn't a series. Would you read another book by him? Obviously,
Yes.
you have
Yeah.
it on your want to read. So yes,
Yes.
I would also want to add that. I thought it would be interesting to add that into our little, I don't know, our list of things that we normally go through is whether or not we would continue reading. And I thought it was interesting because there's so many books that I hadn't heard of, like Night of the Mannequins or My Heart is a Chainsaw. I hadn't heard of those ones.
I think My Heart is a Chainsaw is on my want to read too. Like from a couple of years ago too. Like I've heard about them and added them.
So I thought that was pretty cool. And
I know because like my boss at work, she read this and The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, and she loved them both, and she said this one's really good too. And she was even like, "Oh, you can borrow it if you want." But then me and Tyler ended up going to an indie bookstore, and he picked this up on Indie Bookstore Day. So, and then we read it. Tyler read it with the book club too, and he really enjoyed it. He gave it a full 5 stars. He very much strongly recommends it, and he's resident vampire lover. He's read he's just started his reading journey this year, but he's probably read, I don't know, probably at least like 3 or 4 vampire books, I would say. And I think this is probably his highest rated one so far.
yes, and I was very
and he loves
curious
like all things vampires.
Because Tyler is like getting back into reading at least. He used to read a lot, right? So
Yes.
it's interesting to see that because
middle of high school.
He, like Stephen Graham Jones, like according to his Wikipedia, he does experimental fiction and horror fiction, like whatever. And I think that's really interesting because a lot of the 1-star reviews that I saw and like the 2-star is they were criticizing the writing style of this. So they were like, I could not do the writing style. And I thought that was interesting to hear that your partner, who is getting back into reading, still rated a 5-star. So I don't know, maybe it's just them. But I did see a lot of people talking about that.
Yeah. Well, because like we did have like complaint, like obviously like I think Tyler's a lot more lenient with his ratings than I am too. But he said like after we finished this, like he had to go to work like that night, and he was like at work thinking about this book like all night at work. So it's like one of those books that I feel like it does sit with you, I think, and I think that's something that usually he'll rate higher that way. But we were complaining like because half of the book you're getting the perspective of the Native American good stab, and the other half you're getting a perspective from a preacher who it takes place in 1912, and the way that the preacher talks, it's like almost not quite Old English, but it is very much that vibe. So it is a little bit slower to read. And I will say, in every one of them damn preacher chapters, he's always talking about some goddamn food he's eaten, hasn't eat, wants to eat, going to eat, blah, blah, blah. So you really do, I think, you kind of ignore the preacher's chapters to get to Good Stab's chapters.
And if you don't know what this book is about, which you probably should, I feel like at this point, like you probably know what it is,
Yeah.
you clicked on it, whatever, maybe you've looked into it on Goodreads, but it is a vampire story that's following it's kind of like a combination of different point of views. This lady ends up finding this book, right, that comes into her and
grandpa's
it happens
journal.
to be in relation to her. Like, it's just crazy. And then she's reading through it, and she's getting this secondhand account of an oral history that was told to this preacher of this Blackfeet Indian man or Native. What does he call himself? Does he have like a
Pekini?
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be able to properly because it is.
I think it's
So Stephen Graham Jones is
phonetically
Blackfeet Native American.
Blackfeet.
So
yes,
there's a lot of different names that he calls himself. So for the purposes of this, he is that type of indigenous, which is real, which I do think is important to note. Like he's not a white man that wrote this book. I think that's important to include, like, all of that.
I think because too, you look at his he's a very white passing person too. Because I remember like Mariah saw one of his author things, and she's like, "Is he Native American?" I was like, "Yeah, he is." Like, I know, like in some of his photos, he looks very white passing too. So a lot of people don't actually know that he is Native.
So very important to acknowledge. This was really cool.
Yes.
That we were able to read this, and I think it's really telling in the way that like the book is written, is you get that kind of element to it, which is really cool. So yeah, that's what the oral history portion is very much on par with what you would expect with that. Yeah. So I think that's gotta be why people didn't like it, is because it's an oral history, so it's going to have like that type of language.
Well, you listened to the audiobook.
The audiobook was great
too, so I read it and I thought it was fine. Like, it translates really well, I think, to a book. I think obviously Good Stab chapters are better because they're obviously driving the plot forward and they're like actually like something happening and stuff like that. But it also is based off of a true massacre that happened to indigenous peoples in Montana in 1870, I think is the year. Because, like, I was looking it up, too, and, like, I won't spoil anything, but, like, I guess, like, the twists, kind of, like, you know what I'm talking about? I did guess early on in me, probably within the first 150 pages, I, like, told Tyler, and I was like, I think this is what's gonna happen. And he's like, yeah, you're probably right, and I was right. Which we can talk more about later. So I wouldn't say it's, like, the most, like, shocking gasping, and I feel like also for a horror, I don't really feel like it's super horror-y until like the end.
Even then, I don't think. I mean, it is like it's like a horror. It has body horror elements, which was really cool. Like, but to me, it didn't read like scary, which I think people automatically like have that, or thriller. I didn't feel like it had those two elements. Like, it is like a vampire story. It is very sad. It is a very sad story. It does feel like a historical fiction novel. It is. I know, but like sometimes you read like something that's like historical fiction, and like I don't know. We've read a lot of like historical fantasies and stuff on the podcast, and sometimes they don't feel like a historical, just like straight up historical fiction. But this felt a lot more historical fiction than I thought horror.
Yeah, I can definitely see that because like it isn't very like it's kind of gory and like bloody in the way that vampires are like bloody and stuff like that. Like obviously you get that element in that way, but it is not, I don't think it's very scary. And like I recommended this to my grandma who like doesn't like horror or anything like that because my grandparents, they like travel all the United States and stuff, and they like to do the museums and the histories and stuff about like Native American stuff and stuff. So we were talking to her about that, and she talks about like how tragic it was that happened to Native Americans and things like that, like, because it's such a heartbreaking thing that has happened, like, the genocide, and, like, it talks a lot, too, about, like, the sicknesses that white people brought over, and that, like, Native Americans were trying to basically, like, quarantine away from it, but you couldn't because of the way that Western expansion was. So, it is really interesting, and I do think that, like, even if you're not, like, a horror reader, I think you could recommend this to people that don't read horror. Because it's not, like, super scary or gore. Like, I do think there are some parts that are disturbing, but I think like, what's more disturbing is, like, the human condition.
Yeah. Ultimately, like, settler colonialism is the star of the
Yeah.
horror aspect.
That's the horror.
Which I think is really interesting. I think that was interesting having that as, like, a vehicle moving through this, but we don't wanna get too far into I don't think we have much more to say because I didn't see anything really in regards to the author's controversies. I didn't see anything about his politics really because a lot of it is centered around, like, being indigenous. So
Indigenous cultures.
he's
Culture.
not aligned with
Yeah.
anything that I could find, but that's ultimately, like, pushing back against settler colonial, like, narratives, and I think land back is included in that. He had some blog post from 2016 talking about how he was anti-Trump, which is, like, a given. It is a
Real.
given. I would expect that.
Yeah. I hope so.
And then, honestly, only, like, the controversies surrounding this book are just in the ratings, the way people are, like, perceiving it. I went on some Reddit thread, which is, like, it's a fucking Reddit, so, like, take that with a grain of salt.
Yes. Those are the best people to get your opinions
But
from.
people were saying they didn't like how he writes, or they were saying that he writes like a script, and the audiobooks were better, because of the way it's written, which is interesting, 'cause I had a really hard time getting into the book, which is why I ended up doing the audiobook. So, I can probably see that, but I don't think that's necessarily a controversy. That was as close as we're coming to a controversy, because this book is really highly rated.
Yeah, you're acting like people are hating on this. It's 4.11 stars on Goodreads, which is, in my opinion, anything that's over 4 stars on Goodreads is going to be an objectively, like, positively, more than likely a positive book, except for, like, something, like, as horrendous as, like, Fourth Wing, you know? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's, like, rated over 4 stars, but that's not the same 4 stars as this 4 stars, because I ended up giving it 4.25 stars. Because I do think it's not a perfect book by any means, but I do think it is really engaging, and I do think I feel like it is something that you can learn a lot from too, which is really nice, because I feel like I did learn a lot about, like, Blackfeet Native Americans and things like that reading this. And I learned about this massacre that happened that I had no idea even happened, because it's not something that's ever taught in American history classes, and I guarantee it's not taught in other history classes either.
I also gave it a 4.25 star, because it's not, in my opinion, like, a perfect 5-star book. I think it was a little long-winded for what it was. It kind of just kept getting dragged out, and I didn't
Them
really
preacher
like
chapters.
the ending all that much. Like, it was fine, but it didn't leave me feeling, I don't know.
There's, like, a point where I feel like it could have ended, and I feel like I might have rated it higher than the fact that it kept going, which we can talk about more in the spoiler area, because I feel like there's, like, one scene that's, like, if it ended right there, I would have been, like, pogging or something, I don't know. I would have been going crazy, but I feel like anybody that's, like, rating it, like, negatively, I mean, like, I do understand, like, this is definitely something, like, I don't think this is a book for everyone either. Like, it is, you do have to be, I think you do, this is, like, especially the preacher chapters, because I do feel like those are the chapters that drag the most, is that you kind of do, I think you have to like being a little bit slower pace. But I will say, this is one of those books that is, like, perfectly, like, a character focus that is also very plot focused that I like. Because, you know, like, I don't typically like character focused stories, but this is a very character focused story, but also with a strong plot, and that's what makes it very good, you know?
Yeah.
Besides just being
There were
one or the
elements in
other.
the plot that I really wanted to go a certain way that didn't, and I don't wanna get into it until, like, we officially, like, full send into the spoiler zone. So we might just have to just take the leap. So, stop listening now, or
go read it.
Yeah, I do think you
or
should probably
listen.
try reading it at least. If you are somebody that liked, I have not played the Red Dead Redemption games. However, I did read Tor Olson's
I guess.
The Red Dead Redemption, the history, and you like the story arc surrounding like the buffaloes. I think you would like this. I think
Charles in Red Dead Redemption, that's the Native
after
American
reading this,
character in
you
Red Dead
should
2. Red Dead 2,
yeah,
specifically.
after reading this, you should go and read An Indigenous People's History of the United States, or what is it called? By the Fire We Carry, or Killers of the Flower Moon. I think you should read those.
Killers of the Flower Moon, yeah, that's... I definitely think, especially if you've seen the movie Killers of the Flower Moon by Martin Scorsese, I think that very much, it does give similar vibes in that way to this as well. And the book. I read the book too, but just saying.
Yeah, those are my 3 non-fiction
It's like very much like old Western.
It should not stop at this point, because this should be like the tipping point, and I'll get into why I say the Tor Olson book later, because I think it's relevant, mainly to the part of the plot that I wanted to go further, which was in regards to the Pinkertons.
The Pinkertons were we're in the spoiler zone now. I think the Pinkertons in this were completely irrelevant, just like they are in real life now. Which now they're kind of like more funny, because I feel like they're almost like a meme agency. Because like the only thing they're involved in now is like Magic the Gathering cards or some shit,
It's
right?
really goofy. Like what they do now, is the fact that they will probably try to sue.
It used to be like a government.
Stephen Graham Jones. I would not be surprised if they filed a lawsuit. Be like, you depicted me negatively. They did the same thing with Red Dead. They filed a lawsuit. Like, I can't believe you would do this.
Rockstar Games, you're out of
really
here.
Fucking stupid.
Which, I mean, like, I feel like the thing is that the Pinkerton in this is like, he's there for like 10 pages and he's like, yeah, I'm investigating these crazy murders that are happening, preacher. Do you know anything that's going on? He's like, do I know anything? And then he's dead. And you're like, okay, well, there goes that whole plotline story done.
I would have loved to have a more like nefarious villain attached to the Pinkertons. Like, I somehow fall back with like the Catman or some connection. I don't know. I really wanted there to be more, because I think the average reader, if they don't know anything about the Pinkertons and they hear like Dub, I don't know that they would take the leap to look up that name, because I don't remember learning about the Pinkertons in school. If you don't know what the Pinkertons are or like who they are, they laid the groundwork for the FBI and CIA, like their actions.
Yes, and that's why I think like Killers of the Flower Moon is a good like read along with this, because that does kind of talk about like the starting of the FBI being founded in the United States was because of the murder of the Osage Native Americans in, I don't know what state, Oklahoma, maybe? I don't know, Midwest-ish area. And because of like the Pinkertons not doing jack shit, basically the FBI ended up getting like founded with like J. Edgar Hoover or whatever the hell his name is. And now we have the surveillance state we live in now.
I just think like specifically with like the Pinkertons, with them being like this like private police force and investigation team or whatever that ended up like growing, and how they ended up being connected to like the economic ruling class, and the way that they actively work to combat workers' power. They actively work to sabotage collective power being built, and they would like say that union workers were anarchist and communist and shit. Like they did a lot of bad shit for workers' rights in the United States. So I wish there was more. I wish there was a little bit more with them, because I think that would have been good, and just like say fuck the pastor guy and like leaned it, but there just wasn't. He was just so focused on food.
But I think the thing is, though, is that I wonder if, I mean, obviously I didn't do super research into, like, the Pinkertons or what they did, like, during this time or whatever, like, if I assume that the Pinkertons probably did not even, like, because, like, the thing is that, like, I don't think these murders actually happened, or, like, the people that were associated with the massacre getting killed, which is what I did predict, was that the preacher was going to be involved with the massacre in some type of way, and that Good Stab was going back into his past to discover the people that are responsible for the murder of a bunch of people of his tribe, right? And I'm assuming that the Pinkertons probably didn't have shit to do with it, because they didn't care, because they didn't view Native Americans as people, just like how, like, the parallel with Arthur at the end with Good Stab, where he's like, "Oh, but they were just Indians," talking about whenever Arthur was saying that because they killed all those Native Americans and had no remorse for it.
Uh, what was I gonna
Anyways,
say? It's just, like, I didn't think the Pinkertons would tie back into, like, the earlier bits of who he was, but just I think with the investigation going on, I think they could have leaned more into that and just, like, him being a piece of shit or something. Just some more intrigue surrounding him, but he's, like, such a minuscule cameo to have for being such a nefarious entity in the United States. Um,
I
that's
just
what
wonder.
got me.
The thing is, I don't know exactly. The thing is, I don't know if you know either, like how much, especially in like Montana specifically, maybe like the connection, like if the Pinkertons ever really did like investigate that much, then because I feel like by the time it was 1912, like they were already kind of like starting to fall off, you know. Like the Pinkertons did not like they did not stick around for very long.
No, I think after, like, they, like, stopped doing, like, that, they became just working with, like, the corporations and whatnot, and, which is another, like, element to that is, like,
So
with the
according
rise of industrialism and or the Industrial Revolution, they they coulda had something, I don't know. It was just a weird cameo to have
well, because it
for
says
him.
that they're on Wikipedia, it says the height of their powers from 1870 to 1890. So I feel like by 1912, they're kind of not really a big picture in American scheme of things either. So I feel like it's just more of like a, well, they have someone investigating sort of thing.
I
And it
think it
wasn't
should've
even,
like, the story should have been, like, a little bit earlier. I think if it had been 50 years, because like, settler colonialism was happening for a very long time. This
well,
wasn't,
yes.
like, it's not a new thing. I think it just would have been stronger for that aspect because ultimately, like, this story, which is a good story, and I like the oral history and learning about, like, specifically, like, Good Stab's culture and whatnot through this lens was really cool. But the the vampirism in this story kind of just works as an allegory for like settler colonialism and being stripped of your identity through that and everything that they ended up like going through with like losing like your your land, losing your language, being like whitewashed and changed like physically to have to assimilate into western society. Like that's ultimately like, the tool that vampirism and like the dirty faced cat man or whatever um that was, like, the function of it, which was, like, cool, but I just wanted something else
It's
going
really
on.
interesting too because I feel like this is my first. Because I feel like typically, like vampires and what they represent is typically more related to like sexuality in that way and like provocative ism, whatever you want to say, sort of thing. So this is like the most unique medium I've seen used for like actual like vampirism. Is something different than what the typical like metaphor or like symbolism of vampirism in the world. It's like taking a very literal sense of a vampire in a way and reworking it, which is very unique, which I liked about that because I do think that like typical vampire stories can get kind of stale if they're always just like about the same things all the time, where it's just like, oh, we're about sex or whatever, like desire and things like that, which is fine. But I do think that it can get a little bit samesies over and over again. Because how many times can you tell the same story?
Yeah, so this was nice. I like that, how it was, like, different vampires because I didn't know I can't I'm burping. I didn't know going into this how it was going to end up, like, playing out. I thought it was gonna be, like, some sort of, like, John Wick situation, I don't know, I thought he was just gonna go on a
John Wick.
rampage. I don't know. I I
I
didn't
mean,
read anything about it before I went and read it, so I was like, "Well, maybe this is what it's gonna be." And
I
it
just
was
knew it
just
was
really sad.
yeah. Which I mean, like, settler colonialism, like, all colonialism is sad, and, like, the exploitation of what's happened to these people and things like that, and especially, like, I thought it was a really interesting, like, environmental conversation too, because, we talk about too, like, the way that Native Americans and stuff, like, the buffaloes and stuff were basically hunted to extinction in the United States, where they're only native to the United States, buffalo are. but like not anymore. There's barely any around because of like white people coming and hunting them to an extinction, which I thought was a really interesting idea too, because the idea of capitalism like being spread across, like, obviously, I guess, yeah, I guess we're in capitalism in 1912, huh? But the idea of like them selling, like them killing the buffalo, or killing like they're killing like coyotes and like other creatures like that too, and they weren't like using it for like the meat or the horns and things like that. They're literally just taking it for their hides to sell the hides for money, rather than like Good Stab talks about like whenever they would hunt buffalo, one, they would end up making sure like all of the calves and things like that were there so that they were able to reproduce, and it wasn't like a finite resource. But then also whenever they did like kill a buffalo, they used every single part of the buffalo for something.
There's also like another element where the settlers would just intentionally, they went on a spree where they just killed off the buffaloes for a starvation campaign for the
Yes.
indigenous people, which
Yeah.
they killed off so many indigenous people and buffalo that it changed the temperature of the planet. It's like
Mhm.
it's so crazy, especially when you learn about the settler colonial practices in the United States, where they use like the blankets to make people sick.
Yeah, the
They
smallpox
put
blankets.
people in um like
Confined
proto
spaces.
concentrations.
Yeah.
It's exactly what is happening to Palestinians right now. It is
Yes,
the
exactly.
exact same practices like the United States, like I guess it wasn't the United States at the time, but it was like the British Empire. Um, the colonists, it's the same, like, copy
Well,
and
by
paste
1912, it was
book
the
that
United
tried to
States.
yeah, by 1912,
Yeah.
like, in this book, but just,
Yeah.
like, everything that happened up until that point, like, even before in, like, the 1700s,
Yes.
it's what's happening to Palestinians, like, the comparisons I remember when I was reading through an indigenous people's history of the United States, I just kept being brought back to what was happening in Palestine, and it is so scary, and the fact that people are acting like it's fine, it's like, you're seeing, like, this modern day genocide
Yes.
take place, and then we have, like, these novels, these fictional adaptations where you're learning about all this horrific like, stuff that happened, and I know that liberals are consuming this, and I don't see how, like, people aren't making these comparisons to what is happening, and they
Yeah.
think that, like, Kamala Harris would have stopped this all. And I get on this like weird loop of all of this stuff and like the logic that goes behind it, and I just cannot understand
And I think,
how.
I mean, that's like ultimately the problem too. I think like we end up running into that problem too with like Suzanne Collins whenever we read like the Hunger Games and things like that. It's like the authors and things like that, like they have something so important to say, but then they end up falling into populist arguments by not having like a full Marxist understanding or a full left wing ideology or understanding to compare this to modern day, or like things going on around them, where people are so like one track mind and so tunnel visioned, they only see what's in front of them. And I feel like it's really interesting too, because like as autistic people, the fact that like you would assume that we would be like that, but then we're able to connect it to so much more things like historically and things like that. But then like liberals are the ones that are like read history, but then they're objectively not the ones that read history because they don't connect like the fictional works they read and how they're critiquing like actual history or actual things going on in society right now. And not only liberals, conservatives, or anything like under that neoliberalism spectrum is what Mariah and I mean too whenever we say liberals. Just so you know, we're not only dogging on liberals. Like it's the whole neoliberal colonialism, like all of them.
You
Anybody to
live
the
in
right
the
of us.
imperial core and you participate and support the two-party system. This is likely directed at you. Um, which brings me to the ending of this book, and I wonder what different people on the political spectrum are taking away from the way that this book ended. The way everything kind of built up, because in my opinion, it really like I thought like the white character that Stephen Graham Jones wrote down or created, right? Was such like a perfect
Etsy
stand-in for like a very Etsy. She's like generic like liberal college student who's
that
kind of
tries to
woke,
do the right
gets
thing.
it, but like seeing the real implications of a family history that's not too far removed and their actions and how Like, she is not exempt from this. Like, she's reading from it from afar. I'm like, man, my grandpa was like shitty. And then it progressively gets worse. Like, just how bad and complicit and a participant in the system he really was to these people. And it makes me wonder if people are gonna like go out of their way to like either learn their own family tree or whatnot, or what they think the solution is to all of this.
I think what's really interesting too is how much compassion Goodstab's character has for even like the white people and stuff like I mean obviously like what he does objectively to like Arthur is not like the nicest thing in the world, you know, like turning him into a vampire, then forcing him to only eat prairie dogs to where he turns into a grotesque prairie dog humanoid creature sort of thing. But I also think it's interesting is that even though like because the idea is too is that like Goodstab's family and tribe and people were affected by the choices of Arthur and like the people that served in the military and did that thing. The like his children's children would continue to feel the effects of that. But then he's able to have compassion for Etsy. And like obviously he does like leave her grandpa with her and stuff like that. But it's not like he turns her into a vampire or like makes her really suffer with the implications that necessarily could like should be like pushed down onto her because this is something that she has benefited from and profited off of and things in ways that she doesn't even realize or understand. And he's just compassionate in a way that's something that's very refreshing to see, you know?
Which he didn't have to
He
be.
didn't have
He
to be
really
like he
didn't
didn't
fucking
have
have to.
to.
And
No.
I think it's important. And in terms of respectability politics, I would never demand that this
No.
of anyone. Like, I think anybody of a marginalized group has the right to react to violence against them in any way that they deem fit. For the most part. I mean, I really don't have any contention.
Yeah.
Because
Like I
honestly,
get
more
it.
often than not, it's not like the way that, you know, reactionaries are like, "What, land back? You mean they're gonna shove me out of my home?" Because, like, that's not like what
Yeah.
anybody that supports the land back movement
They're
or
gonna start
whatever
bombing
is.
our houses.
But, you know,
Yeah.
they they wouldn't necessarily be morally wrong, in my
Yeah.
opinion, if it did because of just the history, like, the more, like, you learn, I'm just like, "Man." That's why 9/11 makes sense, like, when you know
Yeah.
the history of everything that, like, led up for any somebody's gonna listen to this and be like, "What the fuck do you mean? You don't know what happened in the Middle East and, like, the United States propping up these, like, counter-revolutionary groups that created the Mujahideen, helped create, like, ISIS, like, we did that, and then we
Yes.
just, like, fucked off, and we left, like, countries in like,
In
just terrible
shambles. Yeah.
shambles conditions, and, you know, it was retaliation, it wasn't just, like, a one-off thing. So, that's what I mean. I was like, stuff like that, like, these, like, acts of they make more sense the more you learn,
Well, because, like, you
you
have to
know?
also, like and that's the thing too, is that, like, nobody you put yourself in someone else's shoes, where, like, you have the understanding where, like, somebody is being bullied their whole life, right? And then finally, the last day of senior year, they decide to punch their bully in the face, and you're like, "Wow, I understand that." But the fact is, whenever it's a group of people from a marginalized group in another country that are being bullied and put down for years and years and years, and one day they finally stand up, then it's like, oh no, I don't support that. But then you understand why like a child would stand up to their bully. It's the same situation, just one's on a much smaller scale and obviously not resulting in as much trauma and death and things like that. But it's the principle still stands, I think.
Yeah, 100%. It brings us to, like, Hamas. Like,
Yeah.
that's, where my brain goes. I'm like, they have gone on record saying that, like, 80% of them are orphans, because of the settler colonial violence, brought on by, like, Israel.
Yes.
If
Like
you grew up as a child and you saw this happen, your family, everyone you love around you being killed, would you not?
like
You
what
really
would you
think you
you're just
would
gonna
not?
you know what? Thanks for killing my mom and dad. I'm gonna just sit here and support you now. Like, no, you're not. Like, you just
And
have like
honestly, not everyone does. I get that,
no,
but
yeah.
I think and I
I
know we're
think
kinda
most
a little off
people
track, but it's like, it's all connected. All of these struggles are kind of connected because it all circles back to the US empire and expansionism and settler
mhm.
colonial violence. Like, it's just all this, and like the US being like such a like hegemonic force, and the way that they are pushing like just like the West is expanding. It wants to be number one and dominate in every single aspect. So anything that stands in opposition to that, um they're going to be labeled in like a violent way. So I thought this was interesting. It was interesting the way that his character was in this, and I hope that people realize that like this was nice.
Yeah.
You should not demand it though. I guess
No.
that's what we're saying as white people.
Yeah. But I do think
I support Frantz Fanon's on violence. He said that the only way to undo colonialism was with violence. You know, he's right, because it's a violent force. Which
I
honestly,
don't.
what he did though was like not.
No, I'm not saying it's not non-violent. It's not
He's like, no, you got to go take your grandpa out back.
Yeah, I take him out back and take care of him because I'm done. But I thought it was interesting. Well, because like that's my main thing. Like Etsy is not a major character in this book either. You just get the first chapter and the last chapter are from her perspectives, which is the first chapter is her discovering her grandfather's journal, and then obviously reading through the written history of Goodstab and her grandfather and stuff like that. And then like the final chapter is her dealing with, you know, like her grandpa being a prairie dog vampire in her house and things like that, where I feel like I think I would have rated this higher if she was kind of left out entirely. Like I do understand the purpose of her character in ways to show that like history, no matter how far away in the past it feels, it's really, one, not that far away, and two, also it still does affect people. But I do feel like if the book ended like in that major climax scene in the chapel with Goodstab, where he was bringing all of like he killed all those people and made Arthur like look at them while he was like crucified on the Jesus cross thing, like that was a fire scene. Like that shit, I like sat up. I was laying down reading it. I sat up real quick to like read that scene because it was crazy, and it was honestly like I felt like that like felt like the most like that felt like it could be like a movie, like the way that scene was, you know. And I think that if
chapter.
I do think like that was like I think about that scene a lot, and I do think that like if the book like maybe not necessarily ended there obviously, but I do think that like cutting out Etsy's chapter would make it feel like a more of a complete book, or maybe if there was a different way. I don't have any like critiques on how like to make it better with Etsy's chapter if she was like kept in. I just think that almost made it feel like handholdy, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And that's the thing, is like because it is like handholdy, I wish there was just like a little bit more like at that point you just like full send, just like have some more in there to guide people in the correct line of thinking. I would have liked that. But it's not bad. Like I'm not disappointed with it. I just worry about like the average reader reading this that doesn't really have a comprehensive understanding of these things, and their takeaways. Just because I've seen the way that people treat books online, and it's terrible. And I know it's not like a complete indication of society, but when you talk to people in real life, they also are coming to these same conclusions with like Hunger Games or like, I don't know, fucking Akatar and shit.
Fourth Wing.
See, I have not watched. Oh, if that is going to get turned into a movie, I'm sure it will.
Probably a TV show, because I feel like TV is the new thing. I feel like that, honestly though, I wish this was a TV show so that I could make people experience the story. Like cut out the Etsy shit, finding the journal or whatever, you know what I'm saying? And then this could be like a really good, I think it could be like a really good limited series. Like HBO limited series. Call me up. I got some ideas.
Kind of like that the John Brown show.
I haven't
like
saw that, but I so see really good. Isn't there somebody famous in that? Who plays as John Brown?
Ethan
It's
Hawke.
like yes. Yeah, me and Tyler saw a clip of that, and I was like, damn, I gotta watch that.
I watched it when it first came out, I think. I was watching it because it was like on Stars or something, but I don't think I ever finished it. But I know what
John Brown.
Brown, but it was done really well.
The GOAT.
Love him.
He's my GOAT, my king. Bring him back. When are you getting reincarnated?
Was I gonna say? Do I have anything else? I know it's like it's just not a perfect 5-star book in my head. I think I'm just not super drawn to historical fictions, like a true historical fiction. I did like the way the vampirism, but it was just
Okay,
really long.
Uprising.
It was really long. That I don't know why. I liked it. I like zoomed through it. But
Babel
this
is
I had
also
a
historical
really
fiction,
hard. It's like a historical fiction fantasy though. I
but
don't
it's
know.
still
This like
historical fiction. Takes
I
place in the
could
past.
not bring myself to pick this up, and I think I
I
would have
think
had a
what helped
really hard
me
time getting through it.
is I started reading it pretty early on, and I was just doing it chapter by chapter, and honestly, it was really nice to read it chapter by chapter for this book. Like, I would sit down and I would just read a chapter a day, and then the next day I read the next chapter. And I feel like it felt like more accurate to how the story was being told too, because like all of Goodstab's chapters, like for Arthur, he was getting them in like one like every Sunday, you know, and then it'd be like a week, and then it'd be like the next Sunday and stuff. So I think pacing it out a little bit, like, and I think that's something that a lot of people have. I think that's why a lot of people don't read and stuff too, is because they expect books to just like start going crazy like as soon as you open like page one. But like a lot of the time, like you gotta let it cook, you know? And I think for like especially something like this, and maybe I don't know of any other off the top of my head, but definitely for this one, this is one of those that I feel like if you read just a chapter a day, you get through it faster than you realize.
The chapters are very long.
They're not too bad. Like some of them are long, yes, but I don't think like there's never I don't think
According to
any
the
of them.
audiobook, because some of them was like an hour and a half, and I was like, "What the fuck? Why is this
Yeah,
so long?"
that was some for Tyler too, but I don't think whenever I was reading, I don't think I sat longer than maybe 40 minutes for a chapter. And it was mostly good stab chapters, and good stab chapters are the best chapters, so then read those the quickest, in my opinion.
They were also like a complete story. Like each one of them was like its own complete
Like he had a
story.
beginning, middle, and
Yeah.
end section.
But yeah, all of Good Stab's chapters, like an hour 14, an hour 4, an hour 25, an hour
Like they were
54.
I don't think because even whenever Tyler was reading them, I think the longest he saw was like the last chapter was really long. I remember Etsy's last chapter, that was like an hour and something. But I think most of the other chapters were all like maybe 50 minutes at the longest, according to his Kindle reading speed. Which of course audiobooks are gonna be slower. Like I'm sure you were listening to that faster than one time speed.
Yeah, I think I had it at because I didn't want it to be too like Alvin and the Chipmunks. To have like 1.75. It was pretty solid. Also in the I liked how it was like acted out sort of in the audiobook, which was really cool. Like there's moments with her and her tape recorder, and you actually get to like hear all of the background noises that are going on, like when she's like out in the woods or out in the plains. You hear like the wind, you're
There's
hearing things.
Taz the
It's really
cat.
cool. You hear the car as they're driving, you hear it's interesting.
It's
It's
really
done really well. I
it's
was not expecting that. It freaked me out a little bit when I first heard it. I was like, "What is happening?"
someone's in my car. It's so funny. What me and Tyler thought was really funny too. Well, because like my cat is named Kaz, and then she has a cat named Taz, Taz, and so it was really funny because we were just imagining Kazzy. Because then she would call him her Tazzy boy, and I'll be like, we call Kazzy Kazzy boy all the time.
Does this mean you gotta look back in your family tree? See if you have
Yeah,
a
Kazzy is
an
related.
Arthur or what was his name? Abraham
Arthur
Flowers.
Burkane, Burrocane, something like that. I don't know if you really have any more to talk about. For real, for real. I think it
That
was
was
really good.
about it. I think for me, I think it was just really slow. And I have a hard time with some slower stories, but it's such an important story that it's worth like trudging through it and getting to like the meat of it. I think it's just nice. It's a really
I
nice
think the
change of
second
pace.
half picks up quick though. Like I feel like the first half is slow, yes, but I feel like the second half is pretty fast. Like I feel like I
Yeah.
read like
And like
after
we're saying this at the end, like the people who haven't like listened
yeah,
this far, I'm like not, but
I'm
or like gonna anticipate reading it, or maybe you did just listen to this and you wanted to hear. I
the
don't know.
spoiler
Maybe you're
zone.
a freak. You're a freak and you want to listen to this all the way through. And I'm talking to you. I'm looking at you in your eyes. You should read it or reread it. See, now I have it as an audiobook. I could reread it. maybe.
Okay,
Anyways, I don't think we have anything else. If you'd like to read along with us, I know we didn't participate all that much in this one. You can
I
join for
did.
next month. We
Oh, I want to show the
can
people, if you're watching, if you guys read the book, whenever the grandpa was like a creepy prairie dog thing, I just want people to know this is what I was imagining. And for those of you listening, this is the weasel, I think his name is, from the Suicide Squad movie.
Wait,
James
which
Gunn,
one? The
the
second
second,
one?
yeah, the
Okay.
James Gunn one. Have you seen that one? Anyways, but that's what it looked like, and that's what I imagined Arthur to look like whenever he was a creepy little thing. Go see Superman, another great James Gunn movie.
Oh my gosh. I don't know what we're gonna read next for the book club. We have 63 hours left.
And we have a
It's either
tie, don't we?
yes, right now it's either After the Revolution or Walking Practice.
What did you vote for?
After the Revolution. I know you and Tyler both voted for Walking Practice. I know you
Well,
made
he
him vote for
said
that.
no. He voted for it on his own volition. Thank you very much. I didn't even have to tell him to, because he was like, "These all sound kind of lame, except for the first one and the last one." I was like, "Well," and he was like, "But the last one sounds really cool." And I was like, "Yeah, that one's like about. I think it's about like an alien that turns into other people and then eats them and has sex with them." So, and he's like, "That sounds kind of fire." I was like, "Doesn't it?" And he voted for it anyways. But he thought the first one, but he was worried that the After the Revolution was going to be boring, because I think he actually was looking at reading with us again
We'll
next
see.
month.
I think After Revolution, if we don't end up doing it for the book club, I think it will be a good podcast episode. I think there's gonna be a lot to say about it.
But next week's episode will be Sally Rooney,
Norm
right?
Yeah, normal people, and I'm sure that we're gonna have the great debate on whether or not it's actually a romance. I already anticipate it coming through, what people are gonna think of it, what you think of it. No, just know I'm sure there will be a debate held here
Debate
on
between
literary
us.
liberation. Yeah, because I am in a firm position. I don't believe it's a romance. I think it's
Well,
a love
I
story.
never read it, so I never like had a strong opinion. I just know that Goodreads, you go to Goodreads, and one of the first genres, like after fiction, is literally romance.
All of the Sally Rooney books at my Barnes& and Noble are in the, like, lit fic section. I'm just gonna say that. They're generalized as, like, literary fiction, so I'm curious what you think. And I also have talked to people that read this book after I recommended it, and thoughts. People have thoughts on it, and I'm curious what you're gonna say. Maybe I will try to watch the show in the meantime.
Yeah, it's on Hulu. Is that is what's her name? Daisy something? And Paul Mescal is the man, I think. And then Daisy, I want to say
Daisy Edgar
Edgar.
Jones, yes.
Yes. See? And Paul Mescal is the boy.
What has she been in?
She's in the movie Fresh
Oh,
with
she's
Sebastian
in
Stan.
Twisters, too.
Oh, yeah, and she was in the new Twisters. Yeah,
And she
but
was
she was
in Where the Crawdads Sing. Ooh.
I didn't watch that movie or seen it. But, yeah. And I don't even know what Paul Mescal's in. I just know his name, for real. I just be seeing everyone talk about him on Twitter all the time. I know he's Irish, too. That's the extent I know about Paul Mescal. But
He's
I
in
know
Gladiator, too.
yeah, I haven't seen that.
Other than that, I don't know.
Exactly. See, he's kind of random.
He's
I think he kind of got
he's
famous off
Irish.
of this show, to be honest. I told you, see, I know he's Irish, and I know that because I know people talk about him and Io Debris all the time, because Io Debris is not Irish, but she is Irish in spirit, if you didn't know. Which you probably don't even know who Io Debris is, so moving on. Do you?
Yeah, so we're no.
Nope.
Nope. I will see if I can try to watch this and
There.
see how it's depicted compared to this book and see if it's different.
A stunning novel about the transformative power of relationships. People. That's what it says on the back of the book.
The TV or on Wikipedia it says Normal People is a romantic psychological drama. I don't know. That's what Wikipedia is saying. I'm
Well,
just
that's what I'm
curious what you
saying. There's
think of this.
very much romance like
The,
everywhere.
I know it's like it's weird. It's very
Like
I've never read anything like it.
which because like the thing is that what I'm worried about too is that people say that like with the latest Emily Henry book, which I have not read, but I have read a couple of Emily Henry books. Emily Henry books are romances, but people like to act like they're not romances. And so that's what I'm worried is happening here is just because, especially Mariah, too. The romances that she read are dog shite. And so whenever you get like an actually good romance that's more complex than just a romance, then you're like, oh, it can't be a romance because romances are stupid, silly little things.
No, like I don't want to spoil it for you. But there is like a fundamental part of this that is required of a romance novel that is not featured in said book.
If it's sex, I don't think a romance book has to have
It's
sex in
not
it.
that.
Just saying.
Maybe I'll try to read The Great Big Beautiful Life. I think in the meantime, I'll try to read an Emily Henry book to compare what
Well,
that is, the relationship dynamics compared to this.
Well, because like
I'm just
the
curious.
thing is that I don't know if Newly Nova has read this book specifically because I did watch her read. She did a vlog where she read Great Big Beautiful Life, and she was saying that definitively is a romance. But people on TikTok, whenever that came out, they're like, "This is a woman's fiction book. It's not romance, guys. It's woman's fiction." And she's like, "No, it is a romance." Where I think the problem is that people are just reading dog shit romance, and then they're like, oh, whenever there's more than one plot, it can't be just a
No,
romance
I
book.
can totally like see that, but this specifically is because like Emily Henry's books are in the romance section at
Yes.
Barnes and Noble.
Well, I don't know. I don't look
Sally
for them,
Rooney's
so.
books are not in the romance section. So I'm very confused because I
But
don't know if it's like the inverse what's happening. It's interesting. It's a very interesting
with
book.
Barnes and Noble now, the thing is that like Dark Matter, Blake Crouch, right? You know of the book, right? Right?
Yes.
I would classify that book as a science fiction book, right?
I've seen it in the horror section.
It's in the thrillers section, but it's science fiction. Like, mostly it's science fiction because it's about some dude in, like, a parallel universe.
That is weird.
So that's what and so apparently, like, new CEO of Barnes & Noble, like, took over in 2019 or whatever. They made it so that they could, like, Barnes & Nobles are more ran like indies now, so they don't have, like, a corporate, like, saying where they need to stock certain items. So I think it's up to the discretion of the booksellers at your specific store too. So I think
I don't know. I want to read more of it. Like, I will read all of like Sally Rooney's other books. I know this is like a lot of this is going to get cut out. But I'm going to read like Intermezzo and then the other one that I cannot remember because I like the
there's
way
like
that it's written. But I have my crits of it. There's another book that because somebody else, I think Patches read. Normal people said the same thing that I did. Was like it just did not.
Beautiful World, Where Are You?
I think so. So I don't
That's
know.
a Sally Rooney. But I will say, like, you look up normal people on Goodreads, and this is what Mariah uses to genreify everything that we read, is the Goodreads list. And literally, number one is fiction, and number two is romance.
I think I need you. I can agree with a lot of the tags on here. Except for the romance. I'm gonna be so real. I don't know. There's just something about it that I'm just like, I don't know. People either love it or they hate it. It's a very like.
So
Creepy Del Taco gave it a 2-star review.
Lexi read it and she gave it 4 stars, which looks like it's about the same of what you gave it.
It's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, I haven't started it yet, so I have no opinions. Moving on. I think it'll be interesting too because I am reading like a straight romance right now too, so it'll be interesting to go from like a straight romance into this, and then I'll be able to directly compare and contrast. you know?
Yes. I need you to finish. You can get through it quick. Get through it, and then
Well, people are acting like you can read it in like one sitting.
Yeah, you can. I was reading it outside, so I was like sitting in the sun, and then I would get out of the sun and I'd read something else.
I mean, it's less than 300 pages, I think, so.
It's quick. I feel like you might hate it.
287. Why? Because it's boring?
I think you'll think it's boring. And I kind of thought it was a little bit boring.
Great. But Newly Nova gave it 4 stars, and how often do we disagree on books?
Bunny.
Okay, she didn't rate it that high. Did she? She didn't even read that, I don't think.
Yes, she did.
Did she?
I remember seeing it. I thought it was on a thumbnail.
She gave it 3 stars as well.
Unless she gave it 5.
No. And Bunny, she only gave 4 stars too, I think.
Okay.
Bunny, she gave...
I don't think I looked at these. I think I just saw like the clickbaity title and was like, oh my god.
Yeah, and she says it's for sure not for everyone. Know thyself, but very much for me, is what she said about Bunny. So, but I mean, like, again, very rarely do me and Newly Nova have differing tastes on books, I feel. Anyways, moving on. Yeah, so that's next week's episode. Get sneak preview, I guess, of us talking about it. Other than that, thank you and good night.